And I mean, honestly, Epoch Times is one of the last readouts of real journalism in this country. That, and I'm not saying that to flatter you. You know, I've said that to you before. And I read the Epoch Times every day.
So you all heard of the Epoch Times newspaper, I'm sure. Well, now it's being accused of running a multi-million-dollar money laundering scheme out of the United States. So while you may have heard of the Epoch Times, perhaps you don't know too much about it. It's a right-wing paper that just sort of popped up one day, but it's experienced massive growth here in the United States. It grew substantially during the pandemic, and maybe it's being run by a Chinese cult. Well, it's definitely being run by a Chinese group, but whether or not you want to call them a cult is your prerogative. The group is called Falun Gong or Falun Dafa. The group started back in the early 1990s in China. Tiananmen Square had just happened, and the people were, to put it lightly, not very happy with the Chinese Communist Party. Falun Gong was born as a result of all of the anti-CCP sentiment, and to this day they are still very anti-CCP. And that part might feel relatable or at least understandable. We here also hate the government. No one wants authoritarianism or censorship, etc., etc. The group's core tenets are also admirable and relatable. They're based in ancient Chinese wisdom, celebrating the truth, compassion, and forbearance or tolerance, depending on how you translate it. They believe in the preservation of Chinese culture. Their thing is China before communism. And they practice Qigong, which is said to have many spiritual, mental, and physical benefits, sort of like Tai Chi or yoga. But stemming from that belief in ancient Chinese culture, practices, and beliefs come some pretty controversial modern-day beliefs. For instance, they reject modern medicine. They believe that if you're sick, it's because your qi or like your karma is off, so it's up to you to fix it. They also think that God will eliminate homosexual people, take that how you will, and that in the afterlife, people of different races will be separated from one another. I'm not sure what they think will happen to people of mixed race. Also, I'm not sure why a hypothetical heavenly God would be so concerned about something so corporeal as race. What else? They don't believe in evolution, which is unfortunately not that uncommon here in the United States, especially not with our most extreme Christian populations. And they claim that the Chinese government is persecuting them and essentially committing genocide against them, specifically by harvesting their organs. And honestly, that last part could be true. We don't really know. And there are a few reasons why we don't really know. For one, they are actively being persecuted by the Chinese government. After all, any reputable religion and or cult experiences persecution. If you're not persecuted, do your beliefs even count? If a tree falls in the forest? But seriously, they are persecuted. They are actually banned in China, and allegedly thousands of them are imprisoned all over China. The persecution caused them to flee, and now you can find them in all like 130 countries around the world, basically everywhere but China. But the other reason why it's hard to take their word for truth is because they have a massive, seriously a massive media network around the entire world. Yes, they have the Epoch Times, but they also have tons of smaller outlets and channels, all under different names, mind you, that they sponsor around the world. All are very right-wing, and we'll talk more about that later, and they all tend to use the same talking points. Their network is so robust that they are said to run a propaganda operation that rivals even that of the CCP itself. So, as far as organ harvesting goes, who are you going to listen to? The notoriously secretive and deceptive Chinese government or these far-right religious fanatics?
Just look at that. Look at all that. Yeah, there are new publications spreading out lies about the election.
And speaking of right-wing propaganda, well, they've donated millions of dollars to Donald Trump, so there's that. But if you read or watch their content, you will find a lot of QAnon stories. The guy at the head of all of this, his name is Li Hongji. He lives on a 400-acre compound in New York. He has his own college. He's a religious leader, so of course he pays no taxes on those 400 American acres. He claims that his followers will be able to open their third eye so wide that they'll be able to see through walls. He says his followers can fly, and he is believed by some to be QAnon. Like, he is the source. He's the guy. They're so right-wing that they've recently released a documentary called The Real Story of January 6th.
Exclusive reporting from NBC News linking a Chinese spiritual group footing the bill for some of the biggest pro-Trump advertising on Facebook. The Epoch Times has spent more than $1.5 million on 11,000 pro-Trump advertisements in the last 6 months alone. Put that in perspective. That is more than any organization outside the Trump campaign itself, even more than most Democratic presidential candidates have spent on their own campaigns.
By the way, they're also the same people behind the Shenyang dance performances. I am absolutely sure that you've seen their billboards or flyers or posters wherever you live because they are everywhere. The show is said to be beautiful, but it is also said to have tons of propaganda woven throughout the show. Anti-LGBT stuff, organ harvesting that's in the show, and more. So that's what we're working with, and that brings us to today's story. This week, the Southern District of New York unsealed an indictment where Bill Guan, the CFO of the Epoch Times, is alleged to have participated in a $67 million money laundering scheme involving the paper. The indictment says, quote, "In or about 2020, the money laundering scheme caused tens of millions of illicit dollars to be transferred into the media entity's bank accounts. In fact, that year, the media company's internal financial accounting reflected an increased annual revenue over the previous year of approximately 410%, from approximately $15 million to approximately $62 million. A significant portion of this increase was attributable to the media company's foreign office, including the Make Money Online team, which was managed by Weidong Guan, aka Bill Guan, the defendant." I did say at the start of this video that they seemed to pop up out of nowhere, specifically during the pandemic, which was around the same time that all of this right-wing rhetoric was really becoming more conspiratorial. Anyway, last year, NBC reported on the paper's meteoric pandemic-era rise, saying, quote, "Funded through aggressive online and real-world marketing campaigns and big-money conservative donors, the Epoch Times now boasts to be the country's fourth largest newspaper by subscriber count. Unlike most major newspapers, the Epoch Times isn't audited by the two major independent collectors of circulation data. The nonprofit has amassed a fortune, growing its revenue by a staggering 685% in 2 years to $122 million in 2021, according to the group's most recent tax records. The money laundering scheme is said to have started in early 2020, just as the pandemic was beginning to take hold in the United States. According to attorney Damian Williams, the group used prepaid debit cards, which were purchased below cost on a cryptocurrency platform, to commit fraud. In the indictment, he says, quote, "Certain of the prepaid debit cards were loaded with fraudulently procured unemployment insurance benefits obtained using stolen personal identification information of U.S. residents. The crime proceeds were sold on cryptocurrency platform One to affiliates of the media company's foreign office at discounted rates of approximately 70 or 80 cents per dollar and in exchange for cryptocurrency. Once purchased, the crime proceeds were transferred to bank accounts of the media entities, including through multiple layered transactions designed to conceal the unlawful origins of the funds. To execute the money laundering scheme, individuals employed by or affiliated with the media entities, located both in the United States and overseas, used stolen personal identification information to open accounts, including prepaid debit card accounts, cryptocurrency accounts, and bank accounts that were used to transfer the crime proceeds to the media entities' bank accounts." As for Guan himself, he denies the accusations, claiming that the money came not from fraud, but from real actual donations to the media company. He has since been arrested in New York and is set to appear in court next week. And I think that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. That's it. Thanks.